One such book is the Mind of a Fox by Clem Santa. Mind of a Fox. It's a scenario planning book. Excellent. He has done courses. I attended one of his courses here some 4 or 5 years ago. More, actually. And he takes scenario planning to another level, which is an animated. You know how you do scenario planning with an emotion? Your planning is always skewed by your thinking and your emotions and the way you're connected to things. He detaches you from the emotions and allows you to just speak through the issues. I also, besides reading into the expertise, skill, and knowledge that is broadly available, I primarily lock into the prophetic. So I have to ask myself, what did God say? Now, if you don't have that discipline, you will be more moved by what are people saying. So you've got to lock in and say, what did God say about our country? What did God say about my life? Because if you start with what did God say, you're not now animated about what God said. That's why we tend to repeat what God said authoritatively, and that we hang on to. And that we have said that if God said this, it shall come to pass. Otherwise, stone the messenger. That's what scripture says. You must stone the prophet because you lied to us, because people went into this direction. That means you deceived. You were not accurate in hearing from God. So what did God say? And then utilize all the other resources that are there. For example, read as much as you can about our economy, guys. Read as much, not from newspapers. Get quarterly publications from IMF, World Bank. IMF has just released their own annual report on Africa, which I attended, which was done about 4 or 5 weeks ago at Miko's. And then World Bank issued their own quarterly on Zimbabwe, which was done about 2 months ago. I think it was in August, again at Crystal Lodge. Please get connected to these. That information is vital for you to understand the bigger issues that are at play, instead of you just worrying about your own issues that are at play. That also helps, but you need to connect to the bigger pictures, because God is not working in a vacuum or just working with you there. He's working with the whole globe. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. According to the guiding principle, I know that this is going to be messy, but let me tell you, on the quadrant that is on your top left, it talks about the strengths, the weaknesses. These are options that we have. And it'll fit into the next slide. But let me just say, this is where you do your SWOT. This is where you're doing all your SWOT, analyzing a lot in that quadrant. In the top right, it's where decisions are being made. And decisions that are goal-oriented, implementation-oriented. So they fall under the goal kind of matrix, which is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound, which is a SMART acronym for goal. Now they've got SMART test. I hope I'm talking things that some of you have read or at least are acquainted to. So the SMART and SMART test. EST means engaging, I think sustainable, and then I forget what the other T is. And then the bottom left is because the two X's are, top is control, bottom is absence of control. That is talking about our situation in Zimbabwe. Where are we controlling our destiny? And where are we don't even have control of it? And then on the horizontal axis is certainty, and then uncertainty on the left. And then on the bottom left, that's where you do your PEST, which is the key uncertainties, which are political, economic, sociological, and technological, environmental, and legislative. And here you then do the scenarios. That's where the 3 to 5 year scenarios described by the stories that unfold in a sequential, organized manner. This bottom left is your worst case scenario. You don't want to be in that situation. It's a gridlock. Then your bottom right is the rules of the game. Scenario planning seeks to bring unconscious prejudices to the surface so that they can be acknowledged. This is where you're moving in a particular direction, but there are certain prejudices you're not aware of. You only get the truth by discarding the falsehoods. Sometimes you've got to be very clear by dismissing all the falsehoods. You know, in this day and age of fake news, that's why when we post things on our chat groups, please do everybody a favor that you must have verified that it is fact. If it is a joke, it's a joke. People will pick it as a joke or it's a meme. But if it is fact, do not post it because you perpetuate fake news and people start making decisions based on the wrong information. So it's important that you don't just post things. So in this day of falsehoods, guess what you quickly do? You dismiss all the falsehoods and you are likely to be left with just a bit of truth left and work with that. And that's what is important. You only know what you do control when you have learned about things that you don't control. Now, it's also important to know the things that you can't control. Where we are and where you're going, you must actually say, this I can't control. I never have any control of this. And even at a national level, we all must be conscious what the President Mnangagwa and his team can control and what they can't control. Because you can all start making, oh, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Why didn't he put in a brand new youngsters? We've got lots of skilled people. I mean, there are things that are constitutional that he can't control. There are things that are parliamentary that he can't control. There are things that are physiological that he can't control. There are things that are ZANU-PF that he can't control. He is not ZANU-PF. So you've got to then say, look, which ones lie in the control and out of control? Which ones are certain? Which ones are uncertain? So I would encourage you to use this matrix. So you use that matrix. Could write, can we change today to be Monday? No. We are not God. So stop that argument. But can we manage the time that we have? Yes, it's under our control. So you remember that quadrant again? The vertical axis is control, out of control. This one here, certainty and uncertainty. Now, please see the way, the other way. I'm looking at you, so. And then now, you must look at a country level, internal harmony, internal conflict. Whenever there is out of control, there is conflict. When there is harmony, there is control about everything that is happening. You move to the other side, certainty means now you are competitive. And then when you move on the other side, uncertainty means that you are uncompetitive. That is negative competitiveness. Maybe you can't see the negative there. So it's negative or uncompetitive. Now, if you want to understand anything, and I'm prepared to give this to you guys to use this in your own conversation at your workplaces, whatever you're doing. So this summarizes what could be happening in Zimbabwe. The top quadrant, let's start with that. That's where we said you use a lot of SWOT analysis. It's called a holding pattern. You're not moving. So, okay, let me start with the bottom left, the red one. It's called the black swan. How many of us have ever seen a black swan? Yeah? You have? Not in Zimbabwe. You don't have swans in Zimbabwe. But even in a picture, has any one of you seen a black swan? That means it's a gridlock. A swan is the white bird. Yeah, it's found in seas or swan. Yeah. So black swan is an oxymoron in itself. It means there is gridlock. It's like saying irregardless. So there's a gridlock. A swan is white, but it's black. So there is actually a gridlock. So you can substitute that to be a gridlock. That's what he puts it as. It's a gridlock. Now, in our Zimbabwean situation, where we had got to up to 3-4 weeks ago was actually a black swan. Now, a black swan makes it that you now have a stalemate which is mutually hurting. Whenever there is some kind of crisis around you, the moment it hits a mutually hurting place, you know change is near. Actually, change just happens. But if there is a crisis and you know that other people are not hurting, you are likely to go for a longer time in that crisis. Now, the people of Zimbabwe were in a crisis. The leaders, particularly the political leaders and the securocrats, were not in a crisis. They were developing into a crisis. Okay, so let's put the securocrats there. Let's put the political leaders there. Let's put you and I here. We have been boiling in a crisis. However, because it was not mutually hurting on the 3 compartments, it would have had to go on for a little longer. Then guess where it got to? It got to be hurting at a political leadership level. Atanga kutukana, and I knew that this thing is about to boil over. You know, when it started in June, we knew that December would be too late. The interface rallies was the boiling pot. Then that tipped over. And at that level, it was now hurting in the same way that it was hurting the public. Because now President Mnangagwa was expelled from the party, expelled from government, also expelled from the country. It was game on. Guess where it was getting you? Who was left? The securocrats. They knew that it was a matter of days before they go through the same pain. So they ushered in a gridlock. A black swan was brought into play. It had to be solved. So when people say, this is a gridlock that needed to be solved now. Mutually hating stalemate for everyone. The political leaders, the military, the people of Zimbabwe. It was not difficult to say everyone in the streets. Why? It was mutually hating now. If we had said in June, everyone in the street, ndatotengesa ndinotogonaona chibanzi nhasi mutondidisturba basa rangu ndandinenge mwaka project. But on the 18th of November, when all and sundry said, I am going into the street, people forgot what they are called. I mean, even if you are sick, you just said, ndongo fambo kana watika 100 meters ndodzoka. It was because we are all on that melting pot. So that is the black swan that was introduced. Now, when you have that introduction, it means that it can go either way. It can go right, horizontal, or it can go up. The ultimate position you want is that top right corner, which is got competitiveness and harmony. Are we together there? I'm spending a bit of time here so that I can give you this picture. You can use it with your family, you can use it in your business, you can use it at home, wherever you are. You can use it in relationships as well. You can actually use it at a national level. So this is what has happened. So did we move horizontal or we moved vertical? That is what we are trying to discuss. So we were, 2 weeks ago, we were in the black swan or the gridlock. Nothing could move at that time until we either went this way or we went that way. So let's assess. This is what Claim Center does. So let's assess. On there, on the right, if we moved on the right, it means we move on the right in order to go top. If we moved top, it means we still need to move right to go to that green. So if we moved to the right, it means there is an eco-political reform that is taking place. There is a political reform that is taking place, which is ushering in a level of competitiveness. We are still in conflict. Are we together? I know it Majiga, but the rest is going to be easy. I want you to understand this. The rest is very easy. We are still in conflict. If we moved right, we're still in conflict. But there is now reforms at a political level, which will trigger economic reforms. If we jumped up going there, it means these are economic reform flags. There is now signs of economic reform. Recapitalization, FDI, macroeconomic stability, parastatal reforms, debt servicing, land audit, title deeds to the land, ease of doing business, Elections with 3 outcomes can happen there if we moved up, which is ZANU-PF retains power and reforms, ZANU-PF returns power and no reforms, and MDC wins and reforms. And there's the second one, which is now the National Transitional Authority. The reason why I don't believe in the National Transitional Authority to happen, I believe in its principles, I don't think it will happen this side of the millennium. Why? Is because no one in the right sense of mind is going to say, look, I have 75% of voter or of control of parliament, legislature. Can you have a bit of it to tell me how I should have been doing? It's impossible. So people can romanticize, fantasize about the NTA. I've told even the SAPES people who we've been discussing, I said, this is ideal. It's okay to always look up to the ideal, but it's not realistic. Who on earth could surrender that? So it's always nice to have. It's a theory to have because it is some kind of ideals that you must aspire to. But in practice, it is not practical at the moment because Zimbabwe is not deemed undemocratic by the UN. The UN says it's a democracy. It performs elections. They tick all the boxes. Does it perform elections every 5 years? Yes. Are they contested? Are they people that, are there some problems? Yes, natural. In Africa, there will be problems. Have there been, what have been the monitors and the observers say? They've signed them off and said they were free and fair. Finish. Done, dusted. The tick is there that we are a democratic state. So that is the probability that, now for me, in my assessment, I gave that probability a 40%. That we would have moved in that direction. And I gave this side, which is going sideways, still a 20%. That's what we could have moved on to. That we're just an eco-political reform we're about to take off and move upwards now. I think that we are more going to go the other way, where we will see more economic reforms, political reforms, and so on and so forth, and then move this way. This way, and then go straight into the Autobahn. The open for business, which is that one. That one says open for business. There's a social contract and an increase in eco-political reform. And in the Claim Center one, he also, that is the Autobahn. How many of us have been on the Autobahn in German, where you are cruising at 200 km an hour? In fact, if you're cruising for less, you're going to cause problems. So the Autobahn is that there's no stop, no traffic cops, no nothing, no traffic lights. You are going at a lightning speed. And that's where we're trying to go. For example, where Rwanda is right now, they are on an Autobahn. Whatever they throw on their soil, germinates. Whatever they speak, it happens. Whatever they desire, it manifests. That's where they are. Rwanda, for Africa, the best example you have is Rwanda. But we think we've gone that way. And therefore, there has to be some patience. Now, here gives you, if you go horizontal, it means that there is a desire for an increase in internal harmony. Why? Is because I believe that there is a lot that we now have in common to try and fix. Whether it's the military, the political leaders, or the populace at large, we now have common things that we're all worried about, which means we have to cooperate more than behave as those in a conflict. This is our point of departure now. We now have to be more collaborative than activists. Or antagonistic. We have to be more collaborative. We criticize by offering a solution without antagonizing, because I believe we are moving in that internal harmony phase. But if we think that we are moving on this, there's just going to be contestation, marching in the street against. I don't think that is there. Right now, people actually want we have finally realized that we had a common hindrance. I don't think that it's called an enemy, but a common hindrance which is called succession. So we mustn't look at the person. By the way, President Robert Mugabe, the past president, Robert Mugabe, did some good things and some bad things. If we want to move on, we've got to embrace that that's what it was and move on. Tikangoramba chingoti Mugabe akazotichisa pakati vakomanaka hakuna kwatinoenda. We'll be on this journey, on this mountain for a little longer than we wanted. So we need to move on. So that's claims under. Then we move. Once we move to the autobahn, is that stemming corruption, peace and stability, national healing, access to basic human rights, needs, and so on. We're now on the autobahn. So the key tenets of the scenario, the black swan, current state of economy, not tangible reforms, securocratic state remains. This is what is now the gridlock that we were brought into. If we go back to black swan, it means that we have now, this becomes a securocratic state. That means it's led by the army. It's no longer a constitutional democracy. It's a military, military junta led state. Then the holding pattern, which is that vertical one, remember, on the left, top left, there are things that can happen there. For example, the RAND adoption. There is a whole lot of discussions that are going on about the RAND and so on. Sometimes I just think it's a political will. If you can introduce the bond notes, honestly, you can introduce the RAND and manage the negatives. But I think it was a political, psychological, sovereignty kind of discussion that went in the wrong direction. So the RAND adoption can be one of those things that I think can ease the way, the gridlock of the liquidity crisis we have. A coalition government, here it's more inclusive rather than coalition. Elections with those three possible outcomes, and these elections must be free and fair. The playing field must be leveled. Bottom right is about to take off. Economic reforms flags with key elemental precursors, political reform flags. That's where there's a lot that will be going there. And then open for business is the autobahn, and we move on. Okay. Start plotting, even on your own business. Just see how is it going to react to these moves here. So if this moves, this is what's going to happen. If this moves, this is what's likely going to happen. For example, the stock market crashed because of the overly sentimentality of our investors. They are very sentimental. Why are they sentimental? Because they think everything is being wished for. But the fundamentals at the moment have not been resolved. So where is the stock market going to go back to? to where it was coming from. So we'll see it claw back. Might not be as quickly as we want, but it'll go back because there is still a liquidity problem. There is still TBs or treasury bills that are in the market that are maturing. There's still people who, government is going to need money to pay what? Bonuses in the next 2 weeks. So it's going to start mopping up. So people are still going to go for higher ground, which at this point is what? Is the stock market. Of course, there's going to be trickling in of FDI. There's going to be some kind of measures that maybe the government is going to start bringing in terms of balancing the balance of payment support. But in terms of liquidity, it's going to be the same until you hear an IMF engagement, World Bank engagement, because that huge debt continues to grow. Now, what to watch out for the next 100 days? Cabinet appointments and proposal, and then economic reforms, international re-engagement, alignment of laws to the Constitution, and security sector reforms. Those are the 5 things that I could come up with. That should be on our radar. Cabinet. Composition. Inclusivity now and into the future. So you look at inclusivity. Now let's look at this cabinet very clearly. I've actually had, whilst I was flying, I arrived last night, whilst I was on the plane, I actually looked at it. I said, actually, it's not a bad cabinet after all. You know, sometimes, sometimes you look at it, and I'm not being, you know, abusive to you, but it's not a bad cabinet. And I'll tell you why it's not a bad cabinet, in my view. First of all, the critical ministries have got people that have above 50% reliability. That they would deliver some, they'll stay on course. And I'm saying above 50. Some of us are here and are in professions, yet we only got 50% pass rate. So it didn't mean that we got everything right. So let's get that going. So let's not always expect 100% performance, as if you got here by 100%. So one of the things that you have to look into this cabinet is that, number one, he was only allowed by the Constitution to bring in 5 people. Okay? Limited. Now, have a look at the ZANU-PF MPs. Mondiudza kuti waifana kupinza ndinhingi. Imimi ndudze itai yenyu motora list iripo pa take it from the website. Take it move out. Uyu ndomuziyo ishasha uyu. Uyishasha uyu. Uyishasha uyu wana chinozi vanani mashasha. Machia. Guess where the problem arose? The problem arose by us sitting in a room like this and we said we are not going to get involved. So we got the 3rd, 4th battalion ruling us, mediocrity ruling us, and here we are crying foul. Yeah, so I'm now speaking into your 2018. So you sitting there and saying, 2018, iye chino zakutopinda futi. Takagara tichita wana claim santa ivava tichiva analyze tichivaudza kuti ndo zvakaitika izvozvo and vachita farai muri koko regai va analyze vari koko. What needs to happen is to roll up our sleeves and get involved, because we must produce the best ourselves. Kunyanyanya isusu maKristu zvinonesa zvepolitiki zvine danger zvazoita sei muchaona muna 2018 tinoburitsa futi the same. Please go back there. Munhu ari kubvunza kuti cabinet yakashata mudzoti all right, let me give you the ZANU-PF MPs. Mochitika monditi ndipewo visa vesa ndisiro unofunga kuti uyu anogona kuenda nazvo mberi uyu. Now let's talk about the opposition. The opposition made some blunders in the past. Vadyiwa na 2013 uko varamwirana varasa mwana wacho vamurovera padombo vafa mwana vapachi ma vouchers ese ma MPs kuZANU-PF. Nasi ndo vari kuchema hatisi kuda zvakati. Komakambozviitira in the Facebook. No visionary leadership in that sort of behavior. The people had given you a 5-year mandate. You could have been more behaved. Chaka achieved with all that. Then it's going to go after 3 years. Alliance. What was that about? pastor when the comic pastor. Di anfana kuti pashamu dziye $10 dziye. Pane vanhu vanoda kurohwa stereki neshamu. Because we lost checks and balances. They went this way and they came back this way and nothing achieved. What did they achieve? Zero. So what am I saying is that even in the opposition yourself, who is going, now here it is. If I was Mnangagwa, for example, I would have said, right, give me your top 3. Chamisa, Mudzuri, whatever, iye kupe wacho. Tuvatatura ma vice president avanzi mu government injo. Mova maridza mere mchifara inclusive. This is an opposition that is now crippled. They can't work for 2018. So guess what MDC would have done? Given them their 3rd battalion. Murukutipaka vatiri kuramba kuZANU-PF ndo wamavakutipa venyu futi. Saka, forget MDC. Also understand that Mnangagwa has no control of the party at the moment as a leader. He needed to consolidate, bring in Zvidara, to consolidate because he's going for Congress in 2 weeks' time. Can you understand Clem Santa's thinking? I'm just trying to make us sober so that we don't see this out of a shell. Consolidate a part for 8 months. So for the next 8 months, he has to consolidate the strength of the party and move on. The next thing is he has to trust people who are going to engage with the international community at the economy level, strengthen the party. To have that balance, if you're put in that leadership position, I would literally just say, I did it. UK, I did it. Okay, fine. Because pandakachiona uchilisted my zvangu vakomana zvinozvoita sei ndibva ndatora list rema-MPs ndikati right, I'm going to make my own cabinet. My way came back, same people. Also understand some of the technocrats and the skills went in a G40. This is the best. Now guess what happened? The ministries were shrunk. Kungoona izvozvo zviri kuratidza kuti taita one step in the right direction. That aiwa I am not saying give him 100% credit. I am saying let's observe fact, truth, falsehoods in their own categories. So that when we do our assessments, because Chetama business plan are so weird, because we're emotional about things that are false. The proper thinking, are we together? Proper thinking must remove personalities to start off with. It must bring in principle as a starting point or a truth. So the principle here, Doc, is that we need checks and balances. Agreed. Then we choose which checks and balances work for us. For South Africa, opposition is a major check and balance. But they've also got the constitution. They've also got the various civic movements that are there. They've even got the whole aspect of black and white. It's actually a check and balance. They've got a critical mass. Sorry. It's my country too. Saka, those checks and balances work for them. Maybe they don't work. The UK, our constitution is by far better than the UK constitution. Did you know that? Does it work for them? It does. What do they look for? Checks and balances. They've got a monarch. It's part of the checks and balances. Let me just tell you, from 1990 after I can tell you from about 93 to 99, Zimbabwe had no opposition party. And if you want to look at the years that we covered a lot of ground, was those years. ZANU-PF does not work well with an opposition. I'm telling you, that's my analysis. It isn't. It has not been able to work well. It digs in, it destroys. The moment it has opposition, it destroys. So do we need an opposition? Yes, we do, at an individual level. You can become an MP or councillor at the very least. Can we become those? Yes, we can. At least you can manage your ward better and move on. Economic reforms, land audit, these are some of the things that you must see. Is there a land audit that is being proclaimed? Its application and compliance with the Constitution. What I'm going to try and organize, please help me. I have access to get as many constitutions as we can to give away. If we could all just have a constitution with us. It is very unconstitutional, honestly. For people who are educated and look at narrow the constitution. I didn't go visa cabinet, yes, where's Azimum constitution is. So your argument is limited, is uneducated. Implementation of the 99-year lease, and you know that one of our own flock here is in the ministry that is ready to actually, they've done the draft, permanent secretary, just waiting for this to be okayed, and then it's implemented. But there was dilly-dallying in the previous administration. Debt restructuring, a big one. Debt restructuring is because the debt overhang increases your risk profile as a country. So our risk profile as a country is too high because of the debt issue there. It doesn't matter what we say. The risk, the bidder for risk is much higher until we have a solution on our debt. So we'll still continue to pay heavy penalties in terms of the cost of capital because of our debt overhang. We had done the Lima agreement. It died last year, end of last year, when we were supposed to come, because we didn't want to implement the austerity measures of cutting the government and so on and so forth. They didn't want, and that's what Chinamasa got into trouble for, because he was pursuing that to the end. Align government expenditure in line with fiscal performance. I use the word align here, is because as the economy is growing, there might need for expenditure at certain levels, but align that with the deal with the currency crisis. I still am convinced that we can start by reporting in rands. We don't have to really start printing the rands, but to change the culture of our behavior, start reporting in rands. The next thing is that it's more difficult to externalize rands. If you're taking rands out, it's going into a very controlled jurisdiction, which does not allow that money to go out anyway. So when you're doing that, it's 70% of our trade is with South Africa, so it is likely going to just boost trade rather than anything else. All right, so the next one is deal with the current, revamp and realign the indigenization policy in line with FDI. I think this is very clear. I see the government under ED dealing with this within weeks. It's already started. So within weeks, because I know talking to them, they were saying, look, this is a menace. I once moderated a whole private sector and international community after being asked by the former minister, Joao, to moderate. And then it came out that it doesn't work. And no one wants it. So they know where it is not working. They know exactly. No one is against empowerment, but definitely the way it is skewed, it is anti-FDI. Deal with growing government domestic borrowing. It's a growing thing because there is no one who is helping them fund their own expenditure. So that growing is crowding all of us into a corner. And therefore, there's no new investment that we are bringing in because our money is being taken up by government. Banks can't even lend. So what happens is that banks, the moment they have cash, it's taken by treasury bills and blah, blah, blah. It goes, and then they can give me money to go and start a factory. So that's where the problem is there. So major infrastructure investments in energy, roads, rail, air, communication, and water. Once you start hearing, not the big deals, you know, the Joe Carriageway, Yaka launched 3 so far. The Bite Bridge to Churundi has been launched 3 times. Nothing has happened. So what we don't need anymore is launching. We need work to begin on this sort of infrastructure. There's a lot that is going on in energy. There's a lot that has been going on. The rail thing is for real. This thing is going to take off very quickly. So that's another big thing, because it is going to reduce our cost of doing business as well in terms of moving goods and people. They're revamping our airports as we talk. They're looking at the Harare, the Robert Mugabe International Airport is going to be expanded. The current domestic is going to become the international. And then the current international will become domestic. So that's a swap. Back again, yeah. So that's already underway. So that can take off. We need to take our role as we used to be the main hub in Southern Africa before South Africa came in 1994 with independence. Now we number 20. We need to take at least the second slot as the second hub in Southern Africa. And then, right, quickly, international re-engagement, progress on the China mega deals. So there's need. That China delegation that came this week is now to activate what those mega deals were, because they were predicated on a succession tick box. They also didn't want to put in more money. I was in Mozambique. I met some of the Chinese the engine guys. They did the long chain, and they were mining in Chiadzo. They put up a magnificent shopping mall. He says, look at this shopping mall. This is the shopping mall that was supposed to be in Harare with 285-star hotel complex with a 4,000-seater and sprawling, all sorts of things. That was supposed to be built in Zimbabwe. It's now on the beach in Maputo. So we missed that cut. So yes, the Chinese will bring in that much needed. Everyone is engaged in the Chinese. The Americans are engaged. So we shouldn't be too negative about the Chinese, by the way. They've looted. What we got were not Chinese big business. Remember, the big things are being manufactured in China. So the authentic things are also being manufactured in China. So we just got that's all we got. And we just need to tap into that big capital that is the Chinese, particularly for infrastructure. Those can come, dams and things like that. Accelerated regional integration, still question marks on South Africa. South Africa did not play their cards well in the past 4 weeks. So there's going to be, it's a warming kind of relationship, but we can't avoid it 70% with them because I think we set them a bad precedent, and that Zuma didn't want. So it didn't work out in the direction that they had thought. But we've got a friend in Botswana, we've got a friend in Zambia now, we've got a friend in Mozambique. South Africa decided not to send their own president. So that was a good signal. They could have sent in their vice president at least. Foreign policy shifts incorporating the globe. So my imperialists, that tone, once we start seeing it changing, people are no longer being personal on these issues. Readmission to the Commonwealth, I call it the wild card. It's a wild card. Remember, we kicked ourselves out. So we can always go back and say, UK is now majoring on Commonwealth as its community of nations, or its pool for market, for resources, for whatever. So it's now back to crystallizing its Commonwealth position, seeing that it is getting out of Brexit. Alignment of the laws to the Constitution, this is very easy. Agents on realigning the electoral laws that impinge on freedoms and rights, that those should be repealed to align to the Constitution. Empower and resource the independent commissions to make them effective. The Chapter 12 commissions need to be empowered and resourced. Slightly resourced, two of them are slightly resourced. That is ZEC and Human Rights Commission. The rest of them are there but not functioning. Because that is where democracy plays. That is where you and I play our part. We should never be going to the MP. We should be actually going to the commissions and complain. Whether there's a human rights abuse, whether there's a media abuse, whatever it is, we should be able to engage those commissions so as to bring in, going back, Doc, to those checks and balances are actually constitutional. So we can actually work with the Constitution without working with another political party, necessarily. Activate the NPRC as a matter of urgency. NPRC, National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. Fortunately, on Friday, I was supposed to attend a meeting to activate that. Remember that it was only given a 10-year window. Of that 10-year window was from 2013, from the inauguration of the current administration, for 10 years. So it's to 2023. So, which means we've done 4 years already. And no reconciliation. We've been 4 years back and forth on the actual bill, which has been now agreed on. So we are starting the work so that we heal the wounds that we all have from pre-independence, post-independence. Security sector reforms, restructuring the police force, never again another legal coup. We must make sure that this was an intervention and God allowed it. We cannot have these regular interventions. So there has to be some kind of reform. Restructuring security and intelligence structures, restructuring the police force. The police force has lost its credibility with the people. And so there is need to, we must start seeing some activity. All these are just dashboard aspects that I'm just throwing to you, that look at this, look at changes in this area. If there isn't change, you know that we are just moving very slowly in the direction that but if there is then you know we are either going this way and going to the Autobahn, or we are going up there and doing more SWOT analysis, more reforms, waiting for and then move there. Or we are stuck back into the black swan. Developments in the War Veterans Association towards a non-partisan posture. Somebody was talking about, you're worried about this convergence. But we've got to now start having a war veteran structure that embraces, because much of the war veterans actually are outside the active association thing. And they have been so discouraged by what has been going on. So we see what happens there. The role of traditional leadership in national politics. Again, these are supposed to be non-partisan groupings. It helps for development, because remember, development was also becoming partisan, and it was not broad-based. It was which party, which affiliations you were from. That's it, guys, in terms of, so what do we need, what do we do now? Accept that what we are going through is a process. Position yourselves and don't get lost in the process. Continue to expect the suddenlies. There will be some suddenlies, because God along the way is going to bring these suddenlies to break through so that we keep moving. Avoid being cynical, as this will push you away from faith. Be critical or skeptical, but not cynical. You know there's a difference? Prepare to play your role in ensuring we have the right leaders in public office. Iyo kuramba tichimirira mwe mudharacha uya, hakusisina madharacha uya, atori muno madharacha ari kuuya. Kutonga kwaro gamba ndimi magamba acho aritoripo. Hakuona kumirira rimwe gamba kuti hanzi richauya. You look up to somebody else. If we that's always looking up to somebody else to be our deliverer has got us to where we were. We can't go backwards. Be involved in economic pillars of this country: agriculture, mining, tourism, energy, essential services, construction, and manufacturing. Have your hand somewhere there. I'm not saying what other things are not so, but be involved. Have a leg, have a participation, have a linkage, have a strategic link with those sectors, because that's where the big jumps are going to come from. Look at how you can export rather than import. engage regional and global partners so as to be competitive. All right. Here is my congratulatory message to the President. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, and the First Lady, Mrs. Auxilia Mnangagwa, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow Zimbabweans. On behalf of the people of Zimbabwe, we congratulate you on this historic day in our nation's history as you become the second Executive President of the Republic. Yours is a unique ascendance to leadership, which I believe God allowed to bring a different dispensation of the Zimbabwe we want, whose mandate was at the onset of our independence in 1980. As we journeyed, we lost our way to the Zimbabwe we want. Yours, sir, is no easy task to take us back on track to our destiny as a nation where every Zimbabwean has equal opportunities to express their God-given potential as they pursue their individual and collective purposes. You, sir, have inherited a broken and a hurting people. Through years of colonialism, tribalism, regionalism, racism, and indeed the painful wounds we afflicted on each other of Gukura Hundi, Muramba China, and the election violence, just to mention a few. The nation needs healing before we can move as one. Lead us on that path, Your Excellency. You, sir, have inherited a generation where over 65% of our population is below 35 years of age, and therefore have no experience of the struggle which led to our independence, yet have also no experience of a prosperous Zimbabwe. They long for the inheritance too. We can't urge you, sir, to make them actualize the inheritance of this great nation. You, sir, have inherited a people who are gifted and divinely endowed, yet most have only been able to express their talents and skills outside our borders. Yours, sir, is to make the environment in Zimbabwe so attractive that we will not only attract them back home, but also that foreigners will immigrate to help us build this beautiful country for generations to come. You, sir, have inherited a nation that has been isolated from the community of nations, rightfully or wrongly, thereby negating the nation the opportunity to benefit other nations whilst denying ourselves reciprocity of the same. Yours, sir, is to lead us into taking our place in the community of nations. Above all, you, sir, have inherited a nation endowed with immense natural resources, great weather, diverse culture, and an amazingly peace-loving and beautiful people. Please don't take us further back. We deserve better. We therefore implore you to be a president for every Zimbabwean, regardless of color, tribe, creed, race, age, political party affiliation, class, or gender. Be the servant that you have said you would be, sir. And in turn, we will honor, love, and respect you. Over the months to come, we will be paying attention to your posturing, your positioning, and your language with the hope that you will inspire us to unite in our diversities to build this wonderful nation. That you, sir, will demonstrate forgiveness, starting with your most recent political adversaries. In turn, the nation will be ready to forgive you for what you might have done in the past and what you will do in the future. God has indeed endowed you, sir, with immense gifts to listen, act swiftly with precision. We know you will use them for our benefit and common good. To our First Lady, we want to welcome you as our First Lady, ma'am. Make it easy for us to love and appreciate you. Remember, Mshamkads. In closing, I'd like to quote a psalm in the Bible that captures this poignant and prophetic moment. Psalm 126. God bless you. God bless our President and our First Lady. May God give you divine wisdom, good health, and favor with God and men. Congratulations, Your Excellency and our First Lady.